Hello and welcome. My name is Andrea Stith. I'm the Community Horticulture Outreach and Master Gardener Program Coordinator for OSU Extension Service in Wasco County. Thank you for joining me to learn about growing herbs. I do want to remind you that this presentation will cover the very basic skills of growing herbs. If you are an experienced gardener, this may not be appropriate for your knowledge level. So I want to think about first, what makes you want to grow herbs? So if you're watching this recording, please feel free to comment below and tell us why you want to grow herbs and what you're using yours for, and what herbs are you growing? People have been known to use herbs for healing their body, calming their minds, adding fragrance to their homes, and for flavor in their foods and to preserve their foods. So the word herb comes from Latin herba, which means grass or green top. It is very complicated to define what exactly is an herb. Because of their diversity, no group of plants is more difficult to define. Every book that I have read gives a different definition, and none of them seem to include every aspect of every plant that we call or consider an herb. Again, there are many different ways to define an herb. In the botanical sense, an herb is an herbaceous plant that lacks a woody stem and dies to the ground each winter. Another definition describes herbs as any plant or plant part that has historically been used for culinary or fragrance purposes. And a broader definition of an herb is defined as a useful plant. But then one has to wonder what is meant by that word useful. With a broad look at the word herb, it is possible to include hundreds of plants that fit the definitions. While many herbs are in fact herbaceous, there are a lot that do develop woody stems. A gardener may wish to choose herb plants that have culinary value or aromatic value. And in addition to these traditional qualities, many herbs offer a great deal of ornamental value to the garden as well. I know botanical gardens have started including herbs in some of their sensory gardens because they do hit some of the senses such as sight, smell, and the texture, the feeling of different leaves and foliage. So then we want to look at how are we going to categorize herbs? Herbs can be categorized in many different ways. We will look at a few different ways to categorize herbs in this section. So here we're going to categorize them by maybe their use. Aromatic. Most herbs have pleasant smelling flowers and foliage and are grown for their oils or to produce perfumes, toilet waters, or various scents. Some examples for those are lavender, mint, marjoram, lovage, rosemary, and basil. Then we can look at culinary. These herbs are prized for adding flavor to our cooking, and some examples are parsley and sage, basil, chives, dill, thyme, savory, marjoram, mint, and rosemary, and many more. Then you have medicinal. Used in medicine since ancient times, some herbs are believed to have the power to cure a wide range of ailments or to ward off evil spirits. Others, such as garlic, may have preventative characteristics. While present medical knowledge recognizes some herbs as having healing properties, others are highly considered overrated and can be and should be used carefully, if at all. Because they can interact with medications, whether prescription or over the counter, using herbs for medical purposes, we definitely recommend that you consult your healthcare professional. Then you want to look at ornamental. Grown for fresh or dried arrangements, these herbs may have brightly colored flowers or foliage, while others may have variegated foliage. A few examples here are thyme, rosemary, mint, lavender, and chives. Then another way that we can classify herbs is their growing pattern. So they can be classified as annual, perennial, or biennial. So annual, they grow and bloom one season and then die back. There's some examples on the screen. And then perennial can live for a number of years and bloom each season. Some are deciduous and they die down for the winter, whereas others are evergreen. Again, some examples listed on the screen. Then we can think about biennial. They live for 2 seasons and will bloom during that second season. There are many herbs also that are classified as tender perennials in some places. They are sold in parts of the country where they may not overwinter successfully outdoors. These herbs are often grown in containers during the summer months outside and moved indoors before the threat of cool weather or freezing, where they are overwintered in a sunny location of the home. And then the next season, they are moved back outdoors. So it definitely makes it really important to note your hardiness zone of your perennial herb when you buy it, and then also knowing the hardiness zone of where your garden is. This can help avoid disappointment, thinking that the herb you bought will be a permanent part of the garden when it may not be for the zone that you are located in. This can make it necessary to plan on how you are going to overwinter the plant for the next season. And so herbs can also be classified as robust or fine, mild herbs. So robust herbs are full-bodied, rich in flavor, and are often used alone or mixed with a few other herbs. Robust herbs stand up to cooking and may be used in dishes that are roasted, braised, or grilled. Herbs such as rosemary, thyme, sage, and garlic would be classified as robust. Fine herbs mix well with other herbs when cooked and they become milder. They are often added toward the end of the cooking process. Fine herbs are used also in salads or eaten raw. Dill, basil, parsley are considered mild or fine herbs. Then thinking about the size and design of your herb gardens, as far as what an herb garden should look like and how big it should be, is all left to the gardener to decide. While a garden devoted to just growing herbs and laid out in a meticulous fashion can be charming, as seen in the left-hand side photo here, such gardens are not necessary and are not often practical for the everyday gardener. Herbs lend themselves to being incorporated into vegetable gardens and mix nicely with either perennial or annual flowers. A few square feet allotted to growing herbs outside of the kitchen window or along the patio can also serve the needs of those wanting a few fresh herbs. Herbs planted where they can be brushed against while walking in the garden can add fragrance to your garden. And then many make attractive hedges, ground covers, or edges along walkways. Their foliage, color, and texture blend in well with just about any planting. Herbs are extremely useful and attractive when used in containers as well. A single herb can be grown in a container as a specimen plant, or several herbs can be planted together to give a balcony or a patio gardener a functional culinary herb garden. So just having one in your windowsill, you can be an herb gardener. Or if you want to have a fancy, nice landscaped design herb garden, the range is all up to your imagination and what you want to do with your herb garden. So now let's look at growing herbs outdoors. We want to think about best ways to get started, the soil needs, fertilizer, location, and water considerations. So let's look at first how to get started. Nearly all herbs can be grown from seed. Some are easier than others. The guideline for planting seeds is to sow them at a depth equal to 2 to 4 times their width. The finer the seed, the more shallow it should be sown. Some plants will benefit from starting them indoors, while others may need to be direct planted into the ground because they do not transplant well. So doing your research and knowing a little bit about what your plant's needs are will be helpful when you're getting started. Cutting in divisions are useful and can even be easier than sowing seeds in some cases. When you propagate tarragon, chives, and mint are some examples of those. And then again, just learn the best way to propagate different herbs, and you can always get cuttings or divisions from your friends if you're looking to save some money as well. Then let's look at the soil. Most herbs grow best in well-drained, fairly fertile soil with a neutral pH of 6.5 to 7. If you don't know where you're sitting at, you may look at doing a soil test. Drainage is probably the single most important factor in successful herb gardening. Herbs stall and may die in soggy soil. So just making sure that you have good drainage will help you be more successful. Now let's look at fertilizer. The soil does not have to be especially fertile, so use little or no fertilizer, especially if you're trying to save on inputs and money. With herbs, highly fertile soil tends to produce excessive amounts of foliage with little flavor. So again, we recommend you doing a soil test to see where you're sitting already. Some gardeners may need to add some fertilizer, and some may be fine with what their garden already has. There are exceptions with everything. So among the exceptions, I've listed a few on the screen here. They do require a little bit more amounts of fertilizer. So just think about that. There are always going to be exceptions to the rule. And then if you're looking at trying to add fertilizer, compost is ideal. And then let's just think about the location of where our plants may need to be. Herbs in general need full sun, but will thrive on as little as 6 hours of sunlight per day. A few herbs, such as mint, may need to be contained, or they may overtake your garden. One of the properties I used to live on, a lady had planted a lovely herb garden, and the next summer her mint had taken over everything and had become very much a problem. Plant any potential runaways in containers, or plant in a container that you can sink into the ground just below the rim. Use a pot that is large enough to confine those roots for a couple of years. Then think about watering. Careful attention to timely watering is also key to producing good herbs. Many of the perennial types of herbs, once they become established, they can tolerate soils that tend to dry out between waterings. Annual type herbs tend to do better when watering is done to keep that soil moist. This will allow the herbs to produce abundant leaf growth that is high in flavor oils. The use of mulch, that can be a great help to conserve soil moisture and also to reduce the weed growth in your garden. So consider using mulch. Now we can look at growing herbs indoors, where you need to think about the light, the watering, and fertilization needs if you're moving things indoors. For the most part, herbs require a lot of sunlight. Therefore, growing herbs indoors, especially during the winter, requires supplemental lighting. It is important to realize that the intensity of winter light is often less than 1/10 of the outdoor light during the summer. Then you also are dealing with the window glass further decreasing the amount of light that is available indoors for your plants. And that's for any kind of plant. So these are all considerations if you're growing things indoors. Unless light is plentiful, growth of most indoor herbs will slow or stop during the winter, even when they are kept in a warm location. Perennial herbs will benefit if you place them indoors during the summer in a protected location, or if you plunge the pot in soil up to its rim. Watering your indoor herbs, you want to water thoroughly when the soil surface is dry to touch. With container grown herbs, using a suitable size container with ample drainage holes is important. You want to fill that container with a prepared potting mix growing indoors, and then just regularly, timely watering to keep the soil moist, as well as a regular fertilization program, will result in container herb gardens that maybe are able to produce for longer throughout the season, and will maintain a better appearance of your plants. So again, you just want to water thoroughly when that surface is dry to touch. You don't want to allow your potted herbs to sit in a saucer of water though, or their roots will die back. And then you may want to consider a general purpose liquid fertilizer mixed properly according to the label directions. and apply that every 2 weeks. Usually is sufficient to maintain a fairly quality plant if you're growing indoors. Now we can look at insects and diseases. There are very few insects, mites, or diseases that attack herbs. Again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but in fact, a number of herbs are said to repel pests, and some gardeners believe that herbs make terrific companion plants in gardens. Some herbs, such as garlic, are even used in organic pest management formulas. So that's just kind of a little fun fact. So if we're looking at insects, aphids are a common soft-bodied pest in any garden. They may feed on anise, caraway, dill, curl-leaf parsley, and fennel, along with some other things, but those are the main ones. Sometimes the first clue of their presence is the stickiness on the leaves and the stems. Other potential but less common pests include whiteflies, mealybugs, scale, thrips, and slugs. And in hot, dry weather, spider mites may become a little bit troublesome. Most of the soft, small-bodied critters can easily and safely be managed with regular use of harsh water sprays or insecticidal soap, diluted according to the label directions, both applied directly to the pests. Whatever the treatment, be certain that the label states it is safe to use on your edible plants. Then looking at diseases, other than root problems due to excessively wet soil or potting mix, it is uncommon to have a lot of diseases in the herb family. Sometimes mint is infected by rust. If so, just remove the affected stems associated with those leaves and rust. If you do not know if something is coming up, or maybe you're trying to identify what's going on, we always do recommend identifying before treating. Definitely let us know. You can get a hold of our master gardeners at the plant clinic. I'll give their information at the end, and we'll be happy to try to help you figure out what's going wrong with your plants. But herbs are not usually as affected as a lot of our other vegetable and flower crops. So then we want to think about harvesting and storage. During the season, you may pick fresh leaves as soon as the plant has enough foliage to maintain growth, and you use that in stuff immediately. In general, herbs have the best flavor if gathered before the flower buds open. Harvest herbs in the morning when the essential oils that give herbs their signature aromas and flavors are at their highest concentration. Pick leaves after dew has dried, but before the sun becomes too hot. For major harvest, annual herbs can be cut off at the ground level, while perennials should only be cut down about 1/3 of their size. You can preserve many herbs for future use by drying or freezing them. For more information on this, see the publication listed on my next slide, my resources page. And thank you all for joining us to learn about growing herbs. I will stick around and watch some of the comments as they come in on this video. So if you have questions, please ask. We're happy to help. Or you can check out these references. A lot of the information that I presented today came from these resources, or if you're just looking for more additional resources, I've listed some of those as well. Again, my name is Andrea Stith. I'm the Community Horticulture Outreach and Program Coordinator for the Master Gardener Program at Oregon State University in Wasco County. You can email me personally at andrea.stith@oregonstate.edu, or you can reach out with questions to our Master Gardener Plant Clinic at 541-296-1217. Again, that's 541-296-1217, or email wasco.mastergardener@oregonstate.edu. We'll be happy to connect you with a Master Gardener that can help answer your herb growing questions. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation, and please let us know if you have other things that you want to learn about. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.